Bitcoin rallied 30% last week with the major indices pulling back from all-time highs. Welcome back to another weekly recap where we go over everything that happened last week. And then we'll be going over all the major news along with the top watches coming into next week. We do have Nvidia earnings, which is very key. With that being said, let's pull up the P&L for this month so far. Last week was a pretty tough week. We had a pullback from our all-time highs, and it was very difficult to navigate the first couple of days. I ended off the week green with one Tesla trade towards the upside. Hopefully some of you guys were able to capture that. I laid that out very nicely in the pre-market, but last week was definitely a harder week to navigate for sure. Took a lot more losing trades. On Monday, took a green trade. On Tuesday, I ended up having my first red day in roughly a month, and that was a sign that the overall markets were definitely slowing down. Plus, of course, we're getting that pullback from our all-time high. So a lot of break-even trades last week with a lack of continuation, and that kind of was the theme all week. And on Friday, we did have a very textbook higher time frame setup on Tesla. We had that breakout above 350, and we're looking to target that main gap fill on the daily time frame. So we were able to capture that trade, which was really nice. That ended up putting me up $14,000 on the week. Last week, as I mentioned, was definitely a tough week, more of a resemblance of the normal type of price action that we will have during that August month. With that being said, let's go over some of the notable trades that we had last week. The main trade was that Tesla previous day highs. We're looking for buyers to step in above our previous day highs. And then of course, once we got that break above that 350, which was that flat top on the higher time frames, you can see how nice of a move we had. As soon as we broke above that 350, really solid push towards the upside, and then we're looking for that main gap on the higher time frames. Contracts within really 10 to 15 minutes, once we broke above that 350, these contracts went over 200-300% in a very short period. So that was a trade that we ended up taking on Friday. I'll give you guys a quick little recap of that one here in a second. With that being said, let's talk about some of the notable news events. Last week, Bitcoin did surge over 22%. So there's a lot of opportunity around Bitcoin along with Coinbase, iBit and MSTR and a few other names as well. Some other news events that we do have is the Anthropic IPO that is going to be coming out later this year. Anthropic could aim to raise over $100 billion in a blockbuster IPO, and this could be bigger than SpaceX. So SpaceX had a very big IPO, and now Anthropic is looking to beat that IPO, valuing up to over $2 trillion. That is going to be happening later into the year. If we take a look at the economic calendar here coming into next week, we do have a few orange folder news events on Monday and Tuesday. Consumer confidence is something to keep an eye out for. On Wednesday, right in the morning, we do have the core PCE price index month over month, along with the prelim GDP. That's going to be at 8:30. On Thursday, we have the unemployment claims in the day one of the Jackson Hole Symposium. So that's something to keep an eye out for. And then of course, we have Fed Chair Warsh speaking on Friday at 10 a.m., plus a bunch of red folder news events, and then the Jackson Hole Symposium on Friday for day number 2, and then day number 3 on Wednesday. Some other major news events that we have this week is going to be some earnings that we do have. Kicking off earlier into the week, we have some Canadian banks reporting. We have Zoom on Tuesday after close. The main thing, of course, is going to be Nvidia. That's going to be Wednesday after close. And then we have CrowdStrike, a couple other ones to keep an eye out for. And then on Thursday, we do have MRVL along with Iron. And then AFRM, that is one to keep an eye out for here as well. So these are some of the major news events along with the economic calendar that we have coming into this week. With that being said, let's hop straight into the charts. So first things first, we have the SPY higher timeframes pulled up. And for taking a look at the weekly timeframes, we're definitely pulling back from our all-time highs. We did break underneath that previous week's candle. So for the SPY on a week by week basis, we did close the week bearish. Of course, we are still above that previous all-time high, so we are bullish. So coming into next week, what would we like to see here primarily on the daily time frame? So some of the key levels moving forward that we do have is going to be that 768 along with that previous all-time highs. If you want to see some upside, we'd like to see the reclaim back above that 768 or now the retest of that 760 general area for a push higher. If you go into the lower time frames, the exact levels that we have marked out is going to be that 768. You can see we broke underneath this level earlier into the week. You can see we end up using this as a retest towards the downside, another rejection here on Friday. So coming into next week, the reclaim back above that 768 is going to be key. As for the QQQ, you can see the Qs is right into a higher time frame level of support, which is our 710. This is our daily gap fill area. We like to see a potential double bottom form here on the daily time frame for a pushback towards the upside. So for the QQQ, our exact level here is going to be that 710. You can see some buyers stepping in here on Thursday and Friday, but this is the exact level that we have to hold if you want to see a pushback towards the upside coming to next week. Break above that 716 for a potential move back up in towards that 720. Of course, if we do reject and we get back underneath that 710, we can see a push all the way back down in towards that daily gap that we have created, back down in towards that 700. As for the SMH, the semiconductors, these ones pull back here as well, back into a key level of support. So this is our 560. You can see a couple of rejections here. We are holding above that 560. So if you do want to see continuation on the semiconductors, above that 560, hold for continuation. If we do get underneath that 560, we definitely can see a potential flip here in the market. So want to be cautious. Let's keep an eye on that previous day lows here for the SMH, break underneath rejection, a flip back towards the downside here that we have to be cautious of. As for the IWM, this one is holding up and it's forming a double bottom here on the daily time frame. So keep an eye on a bounce here on IWM for a pushback towards the upside. Above our 302 is going to be key. As for Tesla, this is one of our favorite charts. We talked about that daily gap fill that we had with earnings back towards the upside. We're fairly bullish here on Tesla. We had a flat top break here as well on Friday. We talked about this one in the pre-market. Touch here, a break above that 350 is going to be key. You can see on Friday, we were basing above that previous day highs, ended up taking an entry off that previous day highs, looking for that break of that 350. And you can see once we got that break, explosive move towards the upside, which we were expecting on Friday. So hopefully some of you guys were able to capture that trade. Probably one of the better trades of the month. We do have room back up in towards that full gap fill, which now in this case will be back into that 370. So Tesla, we'll keep an eye on that 370 reaction coming into next week. As for AMD, this one is right into our earnings low. Some of the semis have been a little bit weaker. For AMD here, a break underneath that 460, we can see a push towards the downside. If we can break now back above our previous day highs, then we can see a potential flip here in the markets. As for Nvidia, this one a little bit weaker as well, but it's back into our previous all-time highs level. So let's keep an eye out on Nvidia coming into next week, right off our previous level of resistance. Now we like to see turn into support. Hold this 212 level for a push back towards the upside. So let's keep an eye out for buyers to step in here above that 212. As for a few other tickers that are like Apple, we need it back above that 320 for that potential earnings reversal trade back towards the upside. As for Google, right into a key level of support. Let's see if any buyers want to step in here off that 340. As for Microsoft, previous gap fill, daily gap fill here as well for a push back towards the upside is in play. One of my favorite names here, let's keep an eye out on Meta. One of the more undervalued Mag 7 names currently, coming back into a key level support once again. Touch here, touch, another touch. Let's see if Meta, we can see some buyers reversal back towards the upside. And of course for Amazon, previous key pivot point, let's keep an eye out for buyers to step in here off that 255. Netflix, nice buyers that reclaim back above that 75. I'm bullish on Netflix as long as you can maintain above that level. SpaceX is one of my key watches coming into next week. What I do have is this 150. Now we're holding above that 130. Let's see if we can push back towards the upside here on SpaceX, back up in towards that 150 and above. As for a few other tickers that are my favorite, Palantir, we end up having that nice break on Friday. We talked about that break above our previous day highs. Nice break above that 176, push back towards the upside. MU, buyers are stepping in here off that 920. Let's see if we can push back up in towards 1000 and above. SNDK basing above that 1560. INTC is a little bit weaker here. A lot of these names are definitely a little bit weaker. Even MBIS pulling back. So the main names, of course, are going to be Tesla for continuation. We'll keep an eye out on that one. As for a few other tickers, Hood end up having a nice push right off the lows once we're able to reclaim back above that 92. key psych level here on the higher time frames. Some other names that have earnings this week, we have Nvidia, of course, we have MRVL that has earnings. Some other names that have been pushing up very nicely with, of course, Bitcoin rising is names like Coin, Bitcoin Sympathies. Coin had really nice bounce off this level of support all the way back towards the upside. So we'll keep an eye out on Coin MSTR for potential continuation coming into next week. So with that being said, with the overall markets, as I mentioned, we'll keep an eye out on the SPY and Qs. SPY, if we can get back above our 768, that's going to be key for upside here in the markets. As always, join the pre-market preps if you guys do want a more updated version on a daily basis of what I'm looking for coming into market open. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. And with that being said, I will see you guys all next week. All right, take care, everyone. Peace.